You will be glad to know that factoring by grouping isn't an entirely new process. It is built on what I've already taught you. We will be finding greatest common factor. We will be factoring it out. But now we're going to do it in pieces because there's 4 terms or 6 terms. Okay? And I will show you how to do these though. Let's look at number 1. All right, and the instructions say factor the polynomial by grouping. Factor by grouping, and the reason they told us to factor by grouping is because there are more than 3 terms, okay? Our groupings, the hint will be if there are 4 or 6 terms, you're going to use this grouping. Now, it is exactly what it says. We're going to group pieces of this and just work with pieces at a time. Now notice that what's in between, I did not include in either one of the sets, okay? So now I'm going to concentrate only on this first set right here, and I'm going to look for a greatest common factor. If you have a hard time finding a greatest common factor, I do have a YouTube video for that. So go back and look at that. It would have been back on March 14th, something like that, 14th or 15th. If I look here, the greatest common factor is something that can be divided out of each piece or each term. Okay, this one has a P and a Q. P times Q, with it's crammed together, it's multiply. This has a 2 times 1. This has an invisible 1. We know that if there's not a number, it's always an invisible 1. 2 times 1 times Q times Q, because Q squared is Q times Q. So I need to find what is common in both of those. There's a Q here and a Q here. Do y'all see? Now, of course, the 1 is common, but it's usually invisible, so we're not going to mess with the 1. This has a P, but that one doesn't, so I can't use the P, and I can't use the 2 because it has to be in both pieces. So my greatest common factor is a Q. And we learned the other day that when you factor out a greatest common factor, then inside the parentheses, we're going to put what's left of this after I divide a Q out. So my original here was P times Q, but I factored the Q out. So the Q is gone out, and all that's left is a P. Plus, when I say factor out, it means divide. I divided it out. Now I look at this original, and I factored out or divided out one of the Q's. So I took out one of them. So all that's left is the 2 because I didn't do anything with it. And there's another Q in here. So I factored out the greatest common factor here in this first part. And if I put a minus here, I'm done with this for right now. Now I'm going to look at this section. Again, I need to find the greatest common factor. I'm going to put this because you guys need to see this. This is 7 times P. Of course, there's an invisible 1. This is 2 times 7 times Q. The only thing that is common in here is the 7. So the 7 is the greatest common factor. What's left of this first term when I divide the 7 out of here is a P. I use the minus sign, maybe. Okay, I'm going to come back and tell you something in a minute. And then look at this. And I need to divide 7 out of here. So if I take the 7 out of here, then I have 2Q left. Now, this is a biggie that I'm going to tell you about. If there is a minus in between the two pieces, that will change the sign in the following parentheses. That's the easiest way for me to explain it to you. Just if there's a minus here, it will change the sign in the next parentheses, the following parentheses. Everybody okay so far?
Yes.
Because we're almost finished. Already, we're almost finished. Questions? Okay.
No.
Was there something?
No.
Okay, all right. So now that I'm finished with this, I have come to this now. And now this is something you need to wrap your head around. Now I'm going to look at this piece and this piece, and I want to know the greatest common factor in here. Now, sometimes it's kind of hard to see, but if you notice, there's a Q times this and a 7 times this. But this parentheses and this parentheses are common. Do you see? Now, these are the greatest common factor. So I'm going to factor this out and put it out front. P plus 2Q. Because this is common in both of them. I open another set of parentheses. Now I divided this out of this. So all I have left is a Q. Minus. I factored this out because it's out front now. Because there's a 7. This is your answer. Probably the hardest part to understand is when you see this parentheses, it is one factor because it's in parentheses. This is one factor because it's in parentheses. And since they are the same, they're a greatest common factor. So that's why we take that piece and put it out front. Open the set of parentheses to tell us what's left. The Q.
Deborah, I have a
minus
question.
7. Question, Sandra?
So after you do the parentheses part,
Yes.
do you still mess with the Q and the 7, or is that, do you just forget about the Q and the 7?
Oh, you mean when I came here, and do I need to do anything else? Is that what you're asking me?
On the second step?
Here
Yes.
and here?
Uh-huh.
This is where I got what is left.
Okay.
That's what I did with the Q and the 7. Does that help?
Kind of.
The first time you see this, if I remember when I did it, I thought, you're kidding, right?
Yeah.
So how about, are you hanging on enough that I can show you another example?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? Doris, are you just copying down right now? The first day is kind of tough. Are you okay? To unmute, you just hit your space bar.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay. Okay. I don't want to scare you off, please. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do number. No, I don't want to do those yet. Let me do. Well, we might as well, let's skip. Let's do number 6. Okay. Number 6. On the same page, number 6. All right. Are you okay?
I'm fine.
With
I'm
this?
just having a hard time following, but
Okay.
I'll get it.
Okay. B squared minus 2BC plus 3BD. 3 minus 6CD. Ugh, what a mess. Supposedly, but it's not going to be that bad. Since it has more than 3 terms, it has 4, and later on we're going to do 6 the same way. Okay, then we know we're going to factor by grouping. So let's make 2 groups here. I'm going to group this piece, and we're going to deal only with it. Here's the sign in between. And then we're going to factor that one. So when we look for a greatest common factor, here is B times B. And of course, there's the invisible 1. This one is 2 times our invisible 1 times B times C. So I want to know what is common in both of these terms. It has to match. I see that a B and this B match. Any other matches? Except for the 1, of course, it's invisible, so we don't deal with it. So
No,
B,
there's not any.
I'm sorry?
There's not another match.
Okay, so B is the only thing that matches, so B is our greatest common factor. When I pull the B out, which means I'm going to divide this out of each one of these pieces right here. So when I take this B out, that was the common factor, I only have a B left.
B minus 2C.
Minus sign. When I divide this B out, I'm left with a 2 and a C, 2C. So I have completely factored my first group. Then I have a plus. Now last time we had a minus here, which changed a sign, but the plus does not change a sign. So you're good to go. Let's look here in just this grouping now. And I have a 3, I'm going to ignore the 1, times B times D. And here I have 2 times 3 times C times D. Y'all see? So what I'm going to do is try to find matches. Here's
3.
a 3, good. I hear you, Josh. A 3 that matches and a D that matches. Now, when you have more than one thing that matches, you simply multiply them together. So I have 3D is my greatest common factor. I am going to divide those out of this. I'm going to take them out and put down what's left in this grouping.
B minus
So I divided the 3 out, I divided the D out, so all that's left is a B. And then my minus, because we decided I don't have to change any signs. When it's a plus, I don't have to change any signs. And then I divided the 3 and the D out of this,
2C.
and all that was left was 2C. Now, if we back up a minute and look,
B minus 2C.
it always give us another greatest common factor. Notice that this is a factor and it is common with this factor. They're exactly the same. This is the greatest common factor in this binomial. So I'm going to pull that out front. I'm going to divide it out now. So I divided this out and divided this out because it's common. So all that's left is a B
Plus 3D.
plus 3D. It is completely factored. This is your answer.
Pretty simple.
Is it yeah, thank you, Josh. Is it starting to grow on you?
A little bit.
Little bit. Okay. Sandra, you're the one that said it. Is it coming along?
It's coming.
Okay. Now I have the choice of either doing one with 4 again for you or moving on to the one with 6 terms.
I think we can move on.
Okay. And I heard here in the classroom 1 more. So let's do,
I really only have a question.
okay.
Okay, so number 2, like it says 6
and 4, so that would be 2 times 3 times 8 times 8 times 8 times 8. Yes,
Okay.
yes. So you're okay?
Yeah.
Okay, they decided 6 is fine. So let's go on and I will find, I think it's number 4 that I wanted to show you, but I will make sure. I wrote these down yesterday. I think it's number 4. Yes, it is. Number 4 looks like this. Of course, I will write it down, but number 4 is right here.
Same page?
Okay. You see where I am, Brandy?
Is it the same page?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay. Number 4. This one has 6 terms. It is done exactly the same. So now I have 5 x to the 6th plus 10 x to the 5th plus x to the 4th y. And we understand that if there's not a coefficient, it's an invisible one, okay? Plus 2 x cubed y plus 3x plus 6. Okay, all of you quit shaking and take a really deep breath because this is done exactly like we did the last ones. You're going to divide, since it's got way too many terms, we're going to put them in groups. So here's a group, here's the sign. Here's a group, here's the sign, and here's a group. We group them in sets of 2. Now we need to look at only this set and find the greatest common factor. I have 5 times x times x times x times x times x times x because there are 6 of them. Here I have 2 times 5 times x times x times x times x times x. So I need to find out what's common. Here's a 5 that matches.
And 5x.
5x.
Yes, I'm hearing you guys are great. 5 of the x's match. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my greatest common factor here is 5x to the 5th. So I have 5x to the 5th. Then I open up parentheses because there's some stuff left. So when I divided out the 5x to the 5th, all that's left is our invisible 1 and an x.
Yeah,
Plus,
x plus
and I divided out all of the x's, they're gone, and the 5, so all that's left is a 2, and I'm finished with this one. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a y. Okay, this is 2 and an x, 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 and a y. Okay, and so I need the common terms here. There are 3 of them here that match 3 here,
and a y.
and the y. Okay, so I've got an x cubed y that is my greatest common factor.
This
And
is
let's find out what's left when I divided that out. I took out the greatest common factor. I divided that out. So all that was left was an x.
x
This
plus 2.
sign does not need to be changed because this is a plus. If it was a minus, it would change this one sign. So plus is fine. When I took all these things out, I have a 2. Then I have a plus, and we're going to do this one more time. This is 3 and an x. This is 2 and 3. My common term, my greatest common factor here is going to be the match 3.
3 parentheses x plus 6.
X plus what?
X plus 2.
X plus 2. That's right.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job. Good job. You sound like you're doing really well today.
Oh, yeah.
Well, good. Good. So after we factor each group, notice that you can find a greatest common factor still. The greatest common factor just happens to be a set. I call the parentheses stuff a set. I don't know if anybody else does, but that helps me. You can see that when it's in a parentheses, it's like one thing. It's a set. So can you see that this set and this set and this set are common in each term? So let's bring out the greatest common factor, which is X plus 2. That's in all three pieces or all three terms. And so I'm dividing these things out. So what's left? 5x to the 5th plus
The third
x cubed y
plus 3.
plus 3. And although this looks big enough to be factored again, it's not. This is the end. This is your answer when you took out the greatest common factor.
Oh, okay.
Are your heads spinning?
No, I'm good.
No,
Okay. Doris, I saw you smiling, but I didn't hear what you said.
no, my head is not spinning.
Good, good. Sandra, is it getting better?
Yes, I'm getting it.
Good, good. Let's do one more with 6 terms, okay? One more example, and then I'm going to let y'all go to practice. After today, you should be able to do this entire packet. You should have enough information now to finish the packet. Doris, after we're finished, I will email you this packet. Do you have a printer at the house?
Yes,
Okay. It doesn't have too many pages. Okay.
I think
Hey,
I
Deborah?
already.
What?
Hey, Deb, I was talking. I'm gonna pick up the packets. Do I have anything I need to pick up this week? Or is this it?
Yes, you may have to. I had her copy off a packet that we're going to use on Monday. I already sent that email out. All right, do you think you'll be back by Monday, Rachel?
I could, let me see what they say. Well, her appointment's Tuesday. So,
Let's do this, Rachel.
I'll come in, I'll go ahead and come in Monday. I think she'll be fine because her daddy will be home and
Okay.
she's been doing good. So I think I'll go back to class.
And I was going to say, you already have this packet that we're working on right now. And
Yeah.
because of the 2 days you missed, you're going to need to go back to YouTube anyway. So
Yeah.
don't come after anything today.
Okay.
And then maybe we'll have everything for you on Monday if you can't come in. Okay?
Okay.
All right,
Alrighty.
let's do that. And Sandra,
Okay.
you should have everything. And Josh, you should have received everything in the email.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, all right. So one more, we're going to do number 7 on this front page. And I picked this because if you look at it, you might get scared, but it is not any different than anything else we've done today. When I copy, make sure and check me, those of you that have this problem in front of you, because sometimes I've changed signs and it really messes us up. Or I completely changed the numbers. Okay, we understand there's an invisible one here when there's not a number, but I have 6 terms, and so I'm going to group these in groups of 2. There's a sign. We've got to remember that minus sign. There's a plus, so we're good there. Okay. So here we're going to try to find our greatest common factor again. We have an M and an M and an N. And here we have a 5 and an M and an M. So what's common is M
M
squared.
squared.
So I'm going to bring the M squared out, divide it out. So all that's left is an N
N minus 5.
minus,
N minus 5.
taking the M squared out again, dividing it out, and I have a 5. And I'm finished with the first set. I have a minus, so keep in mind that when I do this next parentheses, it will have to have the opposite sign. So let's do this. I have a 3 times a 3 times an M times an N. And I have a 3 times a 3 times a 5. That's 9 times 5 is 45. And an M. So my common factor is the 3 and the 3 and the M. So I have 9M is my greatest common factor. When I divide that out, I have an N left. Now remember, we would put a plus here, but this minus tells us to change it. So I have to use the opposite sign, and I have a 5 here. The next grouping, I have 2 times 2 times 2 and an N. Here I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. Here's my plus. I have this, this, and this matches this, this, and this. So 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. When I divide those out, I have an N minus 5. Now we didn't change this sign because it follows a plus, and that's fine.
Mhm.
Now we look for a greatest common factor, and now it's starting to stand out to you that here is a factor that matches this one, that matches this one. So I'm going to divide the N minus 5 out of every term, which leaves an M squared minus 9M plus
8.
8. Now, the reason I did this problem is because, believe it or not, we're not finished. Now, several times when we've been factoring or working problems, I tell you, always look at our answer and see if something else can be done. And if I look, this one's fine. But your clue is if there's a squared, you might want to check it out. Okay, if there's a squared. So this looks like the trinomials that we've been factoring all along. So let's try this. We know the greatest common factor has been taken out. So that first step, greatest common factor, we don't have to worry about. There's no specials in our steps, no specials. Of course, we just got through with the grouping. So we go straight to trying to factor this into 2 parentheses. It's just the step that we've already done here. Now understand that the greatest common factor that we pulled out has to be part of the answer, but we don't have to deal with it anymore. It's just part of the answer. What we're doing now is factoring this trinomial the way we've done in the last several days into 2 parentheses. A reminder is the number that goes here and the number that goes here, this times this has to equal the front. Front times front has to equal the front. So we know that M times M gives us M squared. The next step we found out that helps is to block this part off, block the middle term with its sign, and we'll save it for later. Now I need to know back times the back number in these parentheses will multiply together to give me 8. But I have several choices. It can be 1 times 8. It can be 2 times 4. And I guess that's it. It can be one of these. So what I need now, slow down if you haven't been doing this. I need to pick either this or this that will add or subtract to give me 9.
And 8.
Is it. So 1 and 8 go here. And then I need to decide what the signs are going to be. You've learned, huh? Okay, so what we're going to do here, we multiply. This is how we're going to check and find out what the signs need to be. So 8 times 1m is 8m. And I need to add these together somehow to get a negative 9m because I have to get the middle term. Now, again, if these steps right here are confusing, there are 2, maybe 3 YouTubes dealing with these steps, and I explain them further. So the only way that I can add this 1 and this 8 together and get a negative 9 is if both of them are negative. Negative 1 plus a negative 8 gives me a negative 9. So I follow this 1 back up to where it came from, and it's a minus. I follow this to the 8 where it came from, and it also has to be a minus. So our final answer is this part. This factor times this factor times this factor. So you can see on your worksheets, it's a very big possibility. After you have taken this greatest common factor out, you need to make sure and look at what's left and see if it can be factored again. It's a possibility. Are y'all still with me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good, 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 good. Well, that is all I have to teach you today. I can answer questions. And those of you that are my remote students, feel free to stay on as long as you wish, clear up until 12:30 if you want.